Hi guys, I'm John Carrick, author of Legacy of a Mad Scientist and The Legend of Ashley Fox. Today we've got 100 Bullets 41, but before that, again, World Fantasy Tarot. The synchronicities just keep hitting. Today's the devil, the demon. The devil and the demon are the same, although there's lots of demons. They're legion. The devil's one guy, but there's four of him. There's Lucifer, Belial, Baal, and Azazel or Azrael. There's different groupings. It doesn't really matter. Here's what I want to get to. Oh, and I think I forgot this yesterday, and I want to talk about the one we did the day before. Well, we'll get to that. 100 Bullets 41 Graves in Seattle. This is after issue 25, where Daniel Perez was murdered at the summit that they had in Atlantic City that I at first thought was Las Vegas, where Benito Medici won that game of cards against Hank. We never did find out what happened to old Hank. I got to get that issue. Anyhow, Tiny Lives. This one's called A Crash, but it really should be called Tiny Lives. Graves and this other guy, I believe it's Javier Vasco, are standing up in the Space Needle, looking down at Seattle, looking down at the bay, and looking at all the lights out there. You can do this from any penthouse in New York City. Not really Los Angeles. You can do it from the Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles. Mulholland Drive. Look down at the city of LA or the Valley. All those tiny lives. What do they think about? What are they doing? What are their struggles? For some reason, this came up earlier today in my own mind. I remember hearing not too long ago about an astronaut who was asked if he could go back in time and give his younger 25-year-old self any sort of advice, what would he say? And he said, I would remind myself that everyone is struggling. Now, when you're struggling for something like to win a ride on a spaceship, the past of Gattaca, you got to be the best of the best. But you know what? Your local janitor is struggling too. The cleaning lady is maybe not doing the best she can with what she has to take care of her family. And every day is not only a struggle, it's a hopeless struggle. It's an endless struggle. And that's what this astronaut was saying. I remind myself that other people who aren't winning are fighting a lot harder because they're not winning. They don't have the confidence, the arrogance, the pride that can help you keep going. They have to keep going or die. This has some aspects of that to it. Graves is at another summit with three of the families, and then these people living down here in the shadow of the Space Needle cannot see it. I remembered thinking he was looking up at the Space Needle, but he's not. He can't see it from where he is. He's with his girlfriend. They're talking about, is there any wine left? She says a sip. Winning lotto numbers, they did not win. He says, what about some open whiskey? We've always got open whiskey, the girlfriend says. We've always got open whiskey. Alcoholics are giving themselves an unnecessary handicap in life. They're trading fake celebration for real success. That's not a smart thing to do. It's not a smart thing to do. Anyhow, let me continue. This girl looks out the window. No, he's looking out the window and sees a car go down into the ravine and runs off to check it out. Call the cops. That's important. I think they forgot that they called the police. Because, well, this isn't a braided storyline. A braided storyline requires three groups of characters, but this is definitely a twisted story or two parallel stories that cut back and forth, because this one scene by itself is not especially interesting. But when you compare it with the other one and the narration about tiny lives, it makes a lot more sense. It hits a lot harder. So, three families up here talking about Daniel Perez is dead and what are they going to do, and they're offering Graves his old job back They had disbanded the Minutemen, and Graves doesn't necessarily want what these people think he wants. They're projecting their wants onto him. There was that scene in Game of Thrones where the spider, and I'm spacing on his name, the bald, fat manipulator, the minister guy, known as the Spider, and the dwarf Tyrion Lannister, and I think it was the two of them having a conversation about three guys in a boat: a merchant, a warrior, a swordsman, and a priest. And they have, either a sum of money, like a bunch of cash, a bunch of gold coins in the boat, and who of the three survives. Now they presented that as though the warrior were an idiot, like a moron, an oaf, and that the priest and the merchant were both more clever than him. If that were Conan in the boat, believe me, it's only Conan reaching the shore. If it were some sort of legitimate retard with a sword, it might be relatively easy to disarm him and kill him. But then you've got a merchant and a priest fighting over the money, and God only knows who's going to win that. No pun intended. So anyhow, these three, this guy looks like Peter Lorre from Casablanca and all those other 50s movies. This looks like an older version of Megan Dietrich. Sour, sort of, whatever. And Javier Vasco. Javier Vasco is not Augustus Medici, but he dresses and behaves like he wants to be. So Daniel Perez is dead. So the 13, he does have some children, but they are negotiating whether or not to absorb his stake, to just take what he has and split it between the remaining 12 families. They point out that 12 is not 12 is an unlucky number because it's uneven, and you can't get a deciding vote on ideas, plans, ways to move forward. So the other option is to eliminate someone else. And Graves suggests, well, what do you want? Eliminate someone weak? No, they want to eliminate someone strong. Now these two, this guy and his girlfriend, get down to the wrecked car in the ravine, and they're grossed out by the body. Simple as. They've never seen a dead body before. It's just a trash bag holding everything in. And once it's split open, there's no putting it back together. But they find in the dead guy's hand a winning lottery ticket. What do you do? What do you do in that situation? Doesn't that guy look exactly like Peter Lorre? They offer Graves his old position. They make some comments about what he got up your sleeve. Well, I'll show you. There's a bit back here about take a seat, and he says, I'll prefer to stand, and then he sits down anyhow. It's good dialogue. It's good back and forth. The art is amazing. And it feels like there's nothing happening, but oh my God, something is happening right here. This is a negotiation to end all negotiations. In drama school, acting class, all that sort of stuff, it's really about what's said. The play is about the discussions that happen on the stage or on screen, and the decisions that get made, and how that actors reach those decisions. Whereas comic books like Conan or John Wick, I'm much more interested in the fluid movement and the strategy that the warriors take. But this is war at a higher level. This is war with untrained warriors. And that makes them not warriors. They're just business people. Business people who think business is war are out of their depths. And they do not understand the guy that they are dealing with in Graves. Graves doesn't want money. They think he wants power and prestige. That's what they want. They're projecting their wants onto him. So, what they present is that not only to get rid of Daniel Perez, but to also get rid of Augustus Medici. And they don't want Graves. Graves thinks you want me to do it. They're like, no, we just want you to sit back and watch. And once it's done, we'll let you take over again. We'll let you run the Minutemen again. Graves has been running the Minutemen. Graves hasn't stopped. So down here, these two get into a conversation about what to do with this lottery ticket and whether or not it's right to take it. As soon as he snatches it away from her, she starts having second thoughts. If they had head up the hill immediately, the story would have been different. But it isn't. So Graves is kind of going through the same thing. These people are hemming and hawing over how and what to do. They've come to a conclusion. Graves says he wouldn't have allowed it. He wouldn't have allowed Daniel Perez to be murdered. He wouldn't have allowed Augustus Medici to be murdered. The Minutemen's job is to protect the families from each other. Here the families are conspiring to murder two of their group. One of them's already dead. I don't know who killed Daniel Perez. They might have had Cole Burns do it. We'll find out. I will get that issue. It's not at the top of my list of things to do right now. Anyhow, these two go back and forth. She's having some emotional guilt. What if he has a wife? What if he has kids? All right, fine. He'll look. She says, isn't my picture in your wallet? Well, take a look. So he goes back to dig out this guy's wallet. This scene right here is a sensitive situation, but it was always going to end the way it's going to end because they don't know who they're dealing with in Graves. Javier Vasco might have an idea, but most of them really don't know. They're projecting themselves onto Graves. They're thinking, who would I be? Who would I want to be if I were not my rich self as a member of the trust? Well, I'd want more power and money, and we can give that to Graves, so that must be what he wants. That's not what he wants. Graves already has all the power. He has all the power in the world. Once you're who you want to be, you cannot be bribed. You can't be threatened. You can't be cajoled. You can't be manipulated. These people don't know that about him. I know that about myself, and that's why I know it about Graves. I've had the training. I've sought the training. I've chased martial arts training my entire life. So here we go. He pulls out the wallet. The guy's got a wife and 9 kids. So now they're negotiating how much money they should give him. And everything this guy, the boyfriend, puts forward as an answer, the girlfriend quibbles about. She is the opposite of making a decision. He's trying to make decisions for her, and all she does is present him problems and non-answers. And I guess they're called equivocations. Graves, meanwhile, says, this is a bad idea. I'm not going along with it. This is where they finally present the idea of killing the Medicis. You want someone who's weak? Simone is weak. No, Medici is strong, too strong. John Constantine knows who he is. You can't bribe him. You can't manipulate him. That's why Keanu was so good in that role. Meanwhile, these two are going back and forth. What about $1 million? $1 million? It's a lot of money. It's the whole lottery. There's enough to go around. These two are presented with a scenario that they are not equipped to solve with their own personalities, their own experiences, with who they are in the moment. They certainly, either of them could have solved it alone. They cannot solve it together. They cannot solve it together because of their projections about who they think themselves are, about who they think they themselves are, and who they think each other is, and who this makes them once they do it. They can't look at each other in the eye, let alone themselves in the mirror. I think either of these people could take this money and look at themselves in the mirror for the rest of their life. They can't do it together because they're projecting different people than who they really are to one another. They want to be better than they are, but they're small apartment drunks. They want to be better than they are, and they're not. And this is putting their moral value systems to the test. It really is. Same thing is happening up here. These people know who they are. They want to eliminate a member of the trust. Graves recognizes them for who they are. And Graves, they're trying to pull Graves in along with them. What they don't recognize is that Graves is not one of them. And they think maybe he is. This is brilliant writing. So they offer him, well, once we kill the Medicis, you're back. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to notice it. Graves is already back. Graves never left. They might have dissolved the trust. It doesn't mean the trust was dissolved. It just means they made a decision in their minds. It doesn't mean it was obeyed. They're absentee landlords. They're not down in the mix. They don't get their hands read. Not just dirty, they don't get their hands read. Megan Dietrich does, sure. But they don't do the little work. They don't do the little things. They're not, and this is really interesting, they think they're not living tiny lives. Graves knows better. They're the tiniest of all. So these two finally come to a decision, but it's too late. It's too late. These guys have finally come to a decision, and it's also too late for them. What they've done is expose themselves. Now, here's the thing. Daniel Perez is dead, but his kids aren't. His stake is going to be passed down to them. These people may very well wake up dead, and their stake be passed down to their kids to see if they're up to the challenge, if they have the moral fortitude to handle this kind of power. And they don't really have to do anything. That's the most important part of all of this. Sometimes you just have to wait. Waiting for some people can be very difficult. Patience is not suffering. It really isn't. So now these two get seen by the cops. They got the wallet. They get the lottery ticket. It's over for them. They get, searched. They didn't cause the guy to go down the hill. Graves, having that conversation about tiny lives, sees them arrayed right in front of him. So, that brings me right back to yesterday's card, or the day before. I've really been out of it with my eye. The card from the day before, the 7 of diamonds, was you have a member of your group who keeps taking actions into his own hands, basically executing people who step out of line. And I had made the comment that that's really a card written for and about women who want to have influence and they don't. And how do you deal with a guy who keeps taking actions into his own hands? You say thank you. Because what he's done is spared you the drama and the pain of having to be involved in someone else's execution, especially if it's someone a member of your group who lost it and is putting the group at risk. That's why executioners, there'll be a bunch of riflemen lined up so one rifleman doesn't know that he killed the guy. Some of them have blanks. In the old days, they used to do archers. The archers are firing real arrows and they know their arrows hit, but it's the same idea. The Japanese did it differently. The Japanese did executions by beheading. If it wasn't a samurai committing seppuku, if he wasn't cutting his own stomach open and then being beheaded by a second, he was being executed by the shogun's executioner. There's a great series called Samurai Executioner, which led to Lone Wolf and Cub, which is included in the second Kill Bill movie, where the little boy is talking about my dad was the shogun's executioner, and he was so good that the shogun became terrified of him. It's a real guy named Yamada Asamun. And that can happen. That can happen. So what you should say to that guy is thank you. That guy's a sin eater or a waste lock. He's taking on the moral burdens that the rest of the group isn't cut out for. Members of your group, if they're forced to execute someone, that could plague them and destroy their lives. The point is, sometimes life forces itself on you and you don't have a choice. Today's card, the 8 of Diamonds, is your group has built a number of protections around your community and several members of the community didn't help. How do you deal with them? You can always give them an opportunity to step up, and if they continue to not help, you could force them out. You could find a way to shorten their privileges or cut their privileges or whatever spoils the group has. You could limit their access to resources, or you could find ways to let them contribute. This is getting down in the weeds of the end of the world, and it's not really a necessary card. That said, if you don't consider these sort of things, if you're not prepping for the day the lights go out, if you're not training for the day you get jumped at the gas station, if you're not exercising to keep your body healthy, and suddenly you wake up and you have a heart condition and diabetes and plaque in your arteries, well, you did it to yourself, didn't you? All right, see you guys tomorrow.